The collapse has begun, not in the dramatic Hollywood sense, but in the quiet, measurable way that economies unravel, paycheck by paycheck, business by business, state by state. Right now, the average American has less than $400 in emergency savings. Corporate bankruptcy filings are up 40% from 2 years ago. The yield curve, that Wall Street signal that's predicted every recession since 1950, has been inverted for over a year. And while the national conversation focuses on inflation and interest rates, something far more specific is happening beneath the surface. 12 states are standing on economic fault lines. Their vulnerabilities aren't random. They're structural, deep, and accelerating. California's housing crisis meets budget shortfalls. Illinois drowns in pension debt. Nevada's casino economy faces a consumer spending cliff. Hawaii imports 90% of everything while tourism falters. This isn't about politics. It's about math. It's about geography. It's about what happens when decades of economic choices meet a downturn that exposes every weakness. But here's what matters. Understanding these patterns gives you power. Whether you live in one of these 12 states or you're watching from elsewhere, knowing where the cracks appear first means you can prepare, adapt, and even find opportunity in the chaos. Let's break down what's really happening. To understand why specific states are vulnerable, you need to see the national storm forming. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates 11 times between 2022 and 2024, the fastest tightening cycle in 40 years. That decision was meant to cool inflation, and it worked, but it also broke things. Commercial real estate is imploding. Office buildings in major cities sit 30 to 40% vacant, and property values have dropped by a third in some markets. Banks holding these loans are quietly bleeding. 3 regional banks already collapsed in 2023, and more teeter on the edge. Consumer debt has hit $17.5 trillion. Credit card balances are at record highs, with average interest rates above 20%. Delinquencies are rising. Car repossessions are up 23% year over year. People aren't just cutting back on luxuries. They're choosing between gas and groceries. The job market tells 2 stories. Headline unemployment remains low, but job openings have fallen 20% from their peak. Layoffs in tech, finance, and media have eliminated over 400,000 positions since 2023. The jobs being created pay less and offer fewer hours. Underemployment, people working part-time who need full-time work, is climbing steadily. Manufacturing activity has contracted for 16 consecutive months. The ISM Manufacturing Index sits below 50, signaling shrinkage. Factories that expanded during pandemic supply chain chaos are now scaling back. Inventory is piling up because consumers aren't buying. Housing has entered a deep freeze. Mortgage rates above 7% have locked existing homeowners in place. They won't sell and lose their 3% pandemic-era loans. New buyers can't afford entry. Home sales have dropped to levels not seen since 2010. Construction of new homes has stalled, which means fewer jobs for electricians, plumbers, landscapers, and everyone connected to that ecosystem. State and local governments are running out of money. Federal pandemic relief funds are gone. Property tax revenues are declining as real estate values drop. Sales tax income is falling as consumers spend less. Meanwhile, costs for Medicaid, infrastructure maintenance, and public pensions keep rising. This is the national backdrop. Now, let's see how it hits specific places where these pressures converge with local weaknesses. Number 12, California. California faces a perfect storm of outmigration, budget deficits, and cost of living collapse. The state projects a $68 billion budget shortfall over the next 2 years. That's not a typo. Decades of generous spending commitments meet falling tax revenues as high earners and businesses relocate to Nevada, Texas, and Arizona. Tech layoffs have gutted income tax collections. The top 1% of earners provide nearly half of all state income tax revenue, and they're either leaving or earning less. Housing costs remain absurdly high despite falling sales. The median home price still hovers near $800,000, but transaction volume has collapsed. This creates a nightmare scenario. Homeowners can't sell without massive losses. renters can't afford to buy, and the construction industry withers. The insurance crisis amplifies everything. Major insurers have stopped writing new homeowner policies due to wildfire risk. Those who remain have doubled or tripled premiums. For many Californians, insurance now costs more monthly than their mortgage. But California has always been a laboratory for reinvention. The state's push toward renewable energy is creating manufacturing jobs in solar panel and battery production. Agricultural innovation in drought-resistant crops is attracting investment. Remote work has allowed some residents to move to cheaper inland areas while keeping coastal salaries. The question isn't whether California will survive. It's what shape it takes when the dust settles. Number 11. Illinois. Illinois is drowning in debt that compounds faster than the state can address it. The state carries $142 billion in unfunded pension liabilities, money promised to retired teachers, police, and government workers that simply doesn't exist. Every year, required pension payments eat up more of the state budget. Currently, Illinois spends over $10 billion annually just on pensions, crowding out funding for roads, schools, and public safety. The state's credit rating is the lowest in the nation, just one notch above junk status. This means borrowing costs more, which worsens the debt spiral. When recession hits and tax revenues fall, Illinois will face impossible choices: cut essential services, raise taxes further, or default. Chicago's commercial real estate market is in freefall. Office vacancy rates exceed 35% in the Loop. As companies embrace remote work permanently, these buildings may never fill again. The property tax base that funds city services and schools is eroding. Population decline accelerates the crisis. Illinois has lost residents for 9 consecutive years, over 800,000 people since 2014. Fewer residents mean fewer taxpayers to cover fixed costs. Yet Illinois still has assets. Its central location makes it a logistics hub. Warehouses and distribution centers are expanding even as offices empty. The state's universities produce world-class engineering and medical talent. Chicago's cultural institutions and diverse economy provide resilience that smaller states lack. Survival requires painful restructuring, but the foundation for recovery exists. Number 10. New York. New York built an economy on Wall Street bonuses, real estate taxes, and Manhattan office towers. All three are failing simultaneously. Finance sector layoffs have cut deep. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and other banks have eliminated thousands of positions. Bloomberg terminal subscriptions are down. The high-earning analysts and traders who funded the state's progressive tax system are either gone or earning less. Manhattan office buildings face a catastrophic reset. Occupancy rates hover around 50% of pre-pandemic levels. Subway ridership is still 30% below 2019. The lunch spots, dry cleaners, gyms, and services that depended on office workers are closing. Commercial property owners are walking away from mortgages, handing keys back to lenders rather than pour money into worthless buildings. The migrant crisis has overwhelmed city services. New York City is spending over $2 billion annually on housing and support for asylum seekers, money that wasn't budgeted and isn't coming from federal sources. Upstate New York suffers differently. Manufacturing towns that never recovered from previous recessions face another blow. Cities like Buffalo and Syracuse lack the economic diversity to weather prolonged downturns, but New York has survived worse. The 1970s bankruptcy crisis led to reforms and rebirth. The city remains a global cultural capital. Film, fashion, art, and media industries cluster here for reasons beyond office space. The outer boroughs are developing their own economic identities. Brooklyn's tech scene, Queens' diverse immigrant entrepreneurship, and emerging life sciences clusters in Manhattan provide new foundations. The state's challenge is managing decline without losing what makes it irreplaceable. Number 9. Nevada. Nevada built everything on discretionary spending: gambling, conventions, entertainment. When household budgets tighten, Nevada gets crushed. First, Las Vegas casinos are seeing declining revenue per visitor. People still come, but they're gambling less and hunting for deals. High roller spending from international visitors hasn't recovered to pre-pandemic levels. The convention business is down 15% as companies cut travel budgets. The housing market in Las Vegas and Reno experienced wild pandemic appreciation. Prices doubled in some neighborhoods. Now they're falling fast. Nevada has one of the highest foreclosure rates in the nation. Construction workers who flocked there for building boom jobs are leaving. The state has no income tax, funding government entirely. Through gaming taxes and sales taxes, both are collapsing. There's no reserve fund, no economic cushion. When tourism drops 20%, the state budget drops 20%. Unemployment in Clark County historically spikes higher and faster than national averages during recessions. Service sector jobs vanish instantly when hotels and casinos cut staff. Yet Nevada is pursuing economic diversification aggressively. Tesla's Gigafactory outside Reno has attracted battery and electric vehicle suppliers. Google, Apple, and Switch have built massive data centers, drawn by cheap electricity and tax incentives. The state is trying to become a logistics and technology hub. The transition is happening, but it's not fast enough to cushion this recession. Nevada will hurt badly before the new economy takes hold. Number 8. Hawaii. Hawaii's isolation is both its beauty and its economic death sentence. 90% of food is imported. Fuel costs 30 to 50% more than the mainland. Electricity prices are triple the national average. When shipping costs rise and airline tickets cost more, Hawaii's already fragile economy seizes up tourism, which generates over 20% of state GDP, is showing cracks. Visitor spending is down as mainland travelers choose cheaper destinations or stay home. The luxury resorts on Maui and the Big Island are cutting rates to fill rooms. Short-term rental crackdowns, while aimed at preserving local housing, have eliminated income for thousands of residents who depend on Airbnb. The military presence, which provides economic stability, isn't growing. Defense spending shifts to the Indo-Pacific Theater Center on Guam and other locations. Not Hawaiian expansion young people leave in droves. College graduates can't afford to return home. Median home prices exceed $800,000, and entry-level jobs pay barely enough to cover a room in a shared apartment. The brain drain hollows out the future economy. But Hawaii is making moves. Agricultural revival is underway. Local farmers are expanding production of coffee, macadamia nuts, and tropical fruits, reducing import dependence. Renewable energy projects aim to cut electricity costs. The state is attracting remote workers and retirees who can afford the lifestyle and bring mainland income. Hawaii won't boom during recession, but its unique appeal ensures it never fully collapses. The question is, who gets to live there when it's over? Number 7. Florida. Florida's explosive growth is reversing, revealing structural instability beneath the boom. Insurance has become unaffordable or unavailable. 6 major insurance companies have left the state since 2022. Hurricane risk, combined with litigation and fraud, has made Florida uninsurable at reasonable rates. Homeowners now pay $6,000 to $10,000 annually for coverage, if they can get it at all. Many are going uninsured, gambling against the next storm. The housing market inflated faster than almost anywhere during the pandemic. Now it's correcting hard. Inventory is surging as investors who bought rental properties realize they can't find tenants at profitable rents. Prices in Miami, Tampa, and Orlando are dropping month over month. Property taxes are rising as local governments face budget shortfalls, despite the no income tax promise. Homeowners who moved for tax savings are discovering their total housing costs rival what they paid up north. The climate reality is undeniable. Sea level rise, hurricane intensification, and brutal summer heat are making parts of Florida less desirable. The real estate market hasn't fully priced in long-term climate risk, but it's starting. Florida's advantages remain real. No state income tax attracts retirees and businesses. The population is still younger and growing. Compared to Rust Belt states, Miami is becoming a legitimate financial and tech hub. Crypto and fintech companies have established headquarters there. The state will survive, but the blind optimism of recent years is evaporating. Growth will slow, speculation will burn people, and Florida will have to deliver substance beyond sunshine. Number 6. Arizona. Arizona faces a crisis it can't engineer away: water. The Colorado River, which supplies 40% of the state's water, is at historic lows. Lake Mead and Lake Powell are less than a quarter full. Federal cuts to Arizona's water allocation have already begun. Farmers in Pinal County have lost irrigation water entirely. New housing developments in Metro Phoenix face restrictions. The housing boom was built on an assumption that water and air conditioning could support infinite growth. Both assumptions are failing. Summer temperatures now regularly exceed 115 degrees. Electricity demand for cooling is overwhelming the grid. Power costs are rising. The semiconductor industry, Intel and TSMC have major facilities in Arizona, uses enormous amounts of water. State and local governments face choices between economic development and residential water supply. Real estate speculation during the pandemic pushed prices up 50% in Phoenix and Tucson. Investors from California bought properties sight unseen. Now those same investors are trying to exit as appreciation stalls and carrying costs mount. But Arizona is adapting. Massive investments in water infrastructure, desalination partnerships, groundwater management, and conservation technology are underway. The state's solar potential is virtually unlimited, positioning it for energy independence. Phoenix is building an advanced manufacturing base beyond semiconductors, electric vehicle production, aerospace components, and medical devices. The state is younger and more economically diverse than neighboring Nevada. Arizona's challenge is existential, but solvable. The question is whether solutions arrive before the problems overwhelm growth. Number 5. Texas. Texas spent decades marketing itself as the anti-California. Now it's discovering growth comes with consequences. Property taxes are among the highest in the nation, the price of no state income tax. The average homeowner pays $4,000 to $6,000 annually. In hot markets like Austin, taxes on a median-priced home exceed $10,000. For people who moved seeking lower costs, the reality is shock. The electrical grid remains fragile. Winter Storm Uri in 2021 killed over 700 people and caused $195 billion in damage. Subsequent summers have brought rolling blackouts and emergency alerts. The deregulated system prioritizes profit over reliability. Austin's tech boom is correcting. Layoffs at Apple, Tesla, Oracle, and dozens of startups have eliminated thousands of jobs. The cost of living rose so fast during the boom that it's now comparable to second-tier California cities, without California's salaries. Oil and gas still dominate the economy, making Texas vulnerable to energy price swings. Current prices are too low to sustain the drilling expansion that fueled recent prosperity. Houston's commercial real estate is overbuilt. Office towers completed during the boom sit partially vacant. The same pattern is repeating in Dallas and San Antonio. Yet Texas has genuine advantages. The population is young, diverse, and growing. No other large state has Texas's combination of energy resources, port access, manufacturing capacity, and available land. The state attracts corporate relocations, not just for tax reasons, but for business-friendly regulations and educated workforce. Texas won't collapse, but the myth of effortless prosperity is dying. Growth will slow, costs will rise, and the state will look more like everywhere else. Number 4. Oregon. Oregon's urban-rural divide is deepening into economic fracture. Portland, the state's economic engine, is hemorrhaging businesses and residents. Downtown office vacancy exceeds 30%. Retail corridors that thrived for decades are boarded up. Homelessness and public safety concerns have driven customers away. Nike, Columbia Sportswear, and other major employers are reducing their Portland footprints. The state depends heavily on income taxes. Oregon has no sales tax. High earners leaving Portland creates immediate budget crises. The state projects multi-billion-dollar shortfalls over the coming biennium. The timber industry, once the backbone of rural Oregon, employs a fraction of its former workforce. Automation and environmental regulations have permanently reduced jobs. Rural counties struggle with poverty, addiction, and infrastructure decay. They depend on state transfers that are about to shrink. Tech layoffs in the Portland metro hit hard. Intel, which employs over 20,000 in Oregon, has announced rounds of cuts. The smaller startups that emerged during the boom are shutting down or moving. But Oregon has assets. The state leads in outdoor recreation manufacturing and sustainable products. Its agricultural diversity, wine, berries, hazelnuts, grass seed, provides economic stability that tech alone cannot. Eugene and Bend offer alternative urban centers, less afflicted by Portland's dysfunction. Oregon's path forward requires reconnecting its fractured parts and rebuilding what made Portland attractive. The natural beauty and quality of life remain. The social and economic infrastructure need repair. Number 3. New Jersey. New Jersey has the nation's highest property taxes and is losing the people who pay them. The average annual property tax bill exceeds $9,000. In some counties, it tops $15,000. These rates fund excellent schools and services, but they're unsustainable as high earners retire or relocate. Retirees especially are fleeing to Florida, the Carolinas, and beyond. The state's pension crisis rivals Illinois. New Jersey owes over $100 billion in unfunded pension and healthcare benefits to retired public workers. The state regularly underfunds required contributions, worsening the long-term problem. Proximity to New York City, historically an asset, has become a liability. Remote work eliminated the need to live in New Jersey for access to Manhattan jobs. Why pay New Jersey's taxes without the commute benefit? The pharmaceutical industry, long a jobs anchor, is consolidating mergers and restructuring, have closed research facilities and moved operations. Jersey City and Newark have tried to reinvent as financial and tech hubs, but they lack the critical mass to compete with New York or Boston. Yet New Jersey has strengths. The state's location between New York and Philadelphia makes it a logistics powerhouse. Warehouses and distribution centers are expanding. It has excellent universities producing engineering talent. Biotech and medical device companies continue to cluster there. New Jersey won't boom, but its diverse economy and educated workforce prevent collapse. The challenge is managing decline in legacy industries while growing new ones fast enough to replace lost jobs and tax revenue. Number 2, Washington. Washington tied its economy to a handful of tech giants. That concentration is now a vulnerability. Amazon, Microsoft, and Boeing employ over 250,000 people combined in the state. All three have announced significant layoffs. Amazon cut 27,000 positions globally, many in Seattle. Microsoft eliminated 10,000. Boeing's troubles, production delays, safety issues, lost contracts, have led to rolling furloughs. Seattle's downtown is in crisis. Office vacancy approaches 30%. The retail core is struggling as workers stay home. The city's aggressive taxation, payroll taxes on large employers, new capital gains taxes, has accelerated business departures. The state introduced a capital gains tax and is considering wealth taxes. While aimed at the ultra-rich, these policies are pushing high net worth individuals to Nevada and Texas. When a handful of billionaires and tech executives provide an outsized share of tax revenue, their departure creates fiscal chaos. Housing costs remain punishing despite price declines. The median home in Seattle costs over $800,000. Homelessness is pervasive and visible, particularly in Seattle and Spokane. But Washington has economic diversity beyond Seattle. The eastern part of the state drives agriculture, apples, wheat, wine. Spokane is developing an aerospace and manufacturing cluster. Tacoma's port handles massive freight volumes. The state's natural resources, hydroelectric power, deep water ports, timber, provide advantages. The challenge is whether Seattle's dysfunction drags down the entire state, or whether other regions decouple and thrive independently. Washington will remain prosperous by national standards, but the era of unchecked tech-driven growth is over. Number 1, Colorado. Colorado built a boom on outdoor lifestyle, legal cannabis, and tech transplants. All three are faltering. The cannabis industry is collapsing. Oversupply has crashed prices. Small dispensaries and growers are shutting down daily. Tax revenues from cannabis, which the state came to depend on for schools and infrastructure, are plummeting. What was supposed to be a permanent economic advantage has become a cautionary tale about commodity market dynamics. Denver's tech sector is shedding jobs. Companies that opened offices during the pandemic to attract remote workers are now closing them. The Zoomtown phenomenon, wealthy remote workers moving to mountain communities, is reversing as companies enforce return-to-office mandates. Housing affordability has reached crisis levels. The median home price in Denver exceeds $600,000. Mountain resort towns like Aspen, Vail, and Telluride have priced out the workers who staff restaurants, hotels, and ski areas. Some businesses close seasonally because they can't find employees who can afford local rent. The state depends on tourism and outdoor recreation. When discretionary spending falls, ski resorts and national park gateway towns suffer immediately. Yet Colorado has real foundations. The state's aerospace and defense industries, Lockheed Martin, Boeing facilities, military installations, provide stable employment. Renewable energy development in wind and solar is creating jobs. Denver remains a desirable city with a young, educated population. Colorado's challenge is transitioning from boom to balance. The state over-relied on pandemic-era trends that are now reversing, but the underlying quality of life and economic diversity remain strong. The state that emerges from recession will be more expensive, less frenzied, but still functional. Understanding vulnerability is only useful if it changes behavior. Here's what actually matters. First, liquidity is everything. In recessions, cash is king. If you're employed, build emergency reserves, 6 months of expenses, minimum. Cut spending now, before you're forced to. Cancel subscriptions, reduce eating out, delay purchases. This isn't about fear, it's about creating options when others have none. If you live in one of these vulnerable states, assess your personal exposure. Are you in an industry likely to contract? Government workers face budget cuts. Real estate, construction, hospitality, and retail shed jobs first. If your job seems at risk, start looking now while you're still employed. It's easier to find work when you have work. For homeowners, understand your equity position and local market trends. If you're underwater or barely above water, consider whether you can afford to stay if values drop further or property taxes rise. Don't assume real estate always recovers quickly. Some markets took over a decade after 2008. Renters have different calculus. Rent may drop in overheated markets, creating opportunities. But landlords struggling with mortgages may also sell, forcing tenants to move. Have a backup plan and good credit. Geographic flexibility is a superpower. If your job can be done remotely, explore lower-cost locations. Even moving within your state, from San Francisco to Sacramento, from Denver to Colorado Springs, can cut housing costs in half while keeping your income. Skill development protects you. Recessions accelerate automation and efficiency. Workers with current marketable skills survive layoffs. Invest in training, coding, data analysis, project management, anything that makes you harder to replace. Community colleges and online platforms offer affordable options. For small business owners, conserve cash and reduce fixed costs. Renegotiate leases. Cut inventory. Focus on core profitable activities. Many businesses fail not because they're unprofitable, but because they run out of cash during slow periods. Avoid new debt. This is not the time for boat loans, vacation mortgages, or consumer spending on credit card debt at 20% plus interest becomes crushing when income drops. Network aggressively. Most jobs come through personal connections. Attend industry events. Maintain relationships. Help others. When layoffs come, your network determines how fast you land. Stay informed locally. State and city budget discussions tell you what's coming. Service cuts, tax increases, school closings, attending public meetings, or following local journalism gives advance warning. Finally, remember that recessions redistribute opportunity. Assets go on sale. Talent becomes available. Businesses that survive gain market share. If you enter recession with cash, skills, and flexibility, you're positioned to thrive when others panic. This isn't about avoiding pain. Recessions hurt. It's about controlling what you can control and making choices that expand options rather than eliminate them. Economic cycles are not new. They're not anomalies. They're features of how markets work. The United States has experienced 12 recessions since World War II. Each one felt catastrophic at the time. Each one ended. The economy that emerged was different. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. But it emerged. The 1980s recession brought unemployment above 10% and interest rates above 15%. It also forced American manufacturing to modernize, leading to the productivity boom of the 1990s. The 2008 financial crisis wiped out $16 trillion in household wealth. It also accelerated technology adoption, e-commerce growth, and the shift toward renewable energy. The pandemic recession was the sharpest downturn in modern history, and one of the shortest. It permanently transformed remote work, healthcare delivery, and digital services. This next recession will be different again. The states most vulnerable today will either adapt or decline. Some will emerge stronger, having cut waste and invested in new industries. Others will struggle for years, losing population and influence. But here's what history teaches. Recessions don't destroy everything. They destroy the weakest parts. They reveal what was built on debt, hype, and unsustainable trends. They force clarity. For individuals, this means opportunity exists in the wreckage. Real estate prices will bottom. That's when wealth is built. Labor markets will reset. Valuable workers will command better terms. Entrepreneurs will launch businesses, serving new needs. The states that thrive will be those that face reality. Quickly, California needs to address housing and budget discipline. Illinois must restructure pensions. Nevada has to diversify beyond gambling. Florida should price in climate reality. The states that suffer longest will be those that deny, delay, and preserve failing systems. Your job, whether you live in these 12 states or anywhere else, is to see clearly. Don't believe politicians promising painless solutions. Don't trust markets that claim everything is fine. Don't assume your job, your home, or your savings are guaranteed. Prepare practically. Adapt quickly. Position yourself to benefit when the cycle turns. Because it will turn. It always does. And the people who survive recessions with resources and skills intact are the ones who build the next boom. Recessions test us, but they don't define us. The 12 states we've discussed face serious challenges. But challenges are not destinies. Every economic crisis creates winners and losers. Which one you become depends more on preparation than luck. Stay informed. Build reserves. Develop skills. Maintain flexibility. Help your neighbors. The storm is here, but you're not powerless. You never were. If this video gave you clarity on what's coming, hit that like button. It helps more people find honest economic analysis when they need it most. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. We don't do panic, and we don't do sugarcoating. Just the reality you need to prepare. And remember, the collapse isn't the end of the story. It's just the chapter before the rebuild. Let's make sure you're ready for both.